Hello, all you freedom-loving people. SCOTUS cleared the way for federal layoffs, and the FBI opened its investigation of Brennan and Comey for their role in the Russiagate hoax. So, will President Trump make D.C. the 51st state? Okay, let's get into it. On Tuesday, the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for the Trump administration to resume plans for massive federal layoffs and agency reorganization. It's a key step in the president's campaign to streamline and reshape the federal government. The case is Trump versus American Federation of Government Employees. The dispute arose after President Trump issued an executive order in February calling for major reforms to the federal bureaucracy and directing major departments to prepare for the elimination of programs and offices. More than a dozen agencies, including the Department of Agriculture, Commerce, and Health, have made plans to cut staff. Federal unions, nonprofit organizations, and local governments then filed a lawsuit arguing that the order exceeded the president's constitutional authority, and the plaintiffs won a preliminary victory. Federal District Judge Susan Ilston in San Francisco issued an injunction in May that blocked the mass layoffs. The judge noted that in history, it has been shown that the president can reorganize federal agencies broadly only with congressional authorization. And the federal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals subsequently upheld the injunction. But faced with resistance from the lower courts, the Department of Justice filed an urgent appeal with the Supreme Court. The DOJ insisted that controlling the staffing of federal agencies is a core executive power that is granted to the president by Article 2 of the Constitution, and it requires no special congressional authorization. Then the Supreme Court justices temporarily set aside the lower court's injunction. That means that the Trump administration can implement its executive order aimed at drastically reducing the federal workforce while the related litigation continues. But opponents say that the order could affect hundreds of thousands of jobs. The FBI has launched an investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey for their roles in the trumped-up investigation where they alleged President Trump was colluding with Russia. The current CIA Director, John Radcliffe, referred evidence of wrongdoing by Brennan to FBI Director Kash Patel for potential prosecution. The referral was received and a criminal investigation into Brennan and Comey were opened and are on their way now. The full scope of the criminal investigation into these two people is unclear so far, but two sources describe the FBI's review of the duo's interactions as a conspiracy. The Brennan investigation comes after Radcliffe declassified a lessons learned review last week of the creation of the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. The review found that the process of the assessment's creation in the Russiagate hoax was rushed with procedural anomalies and that officials diverted from intelligence standards. It also determined that the decision by agency heads to include the Steele dossier in the assessment ran counter to fundamental tradecraft principles, and it ultimately undermined the credibility of a key judgment. The review marks the first time that career CIA officials have acknowledged politicization of the process by which the assessment was written, particularly by Obama-era political appointees. Brennan testified to the House Judiciary Committee in May of 2023 that he did not believe the Steele dossier should be included in that intelligence product. But records that were declassified as part of that review further revealed that Brennan did, in fact, push for the dossier to be included in the 2017 assessment. But CIA officials at the time of its creation even cast the dossier as simply internet rumor. And the new CIA review states, despite these objections, Brennan showed a preference for narrative consistency over analytical soundness. The review added, Brennan ultimately formalized his position in writing, stating that my bottom line is that I believe the information warrants inclusion in the report. But Brennan testified the opposite in front of Congress. He said before the House committee, the CIA was very much opposed to having any reference or inclusion of the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment. Back in April, President Trump filed a lawsuit against Perkins Coie the law firm that was hired by the DNC to create the Russiagate narrative, the Steele dossier, and interfere in the 2016 election. Zohran Mamdani has been in the media spotlight since winning the Democratic primary for New York mayor. The New York Times last week published leaked details of Mamdani's 2009 Columbia University application, and it has thrust the New York Times into a blossoming scandal. The paper obtained the details through an unnamed intermediary that was later identified as eugenicist Jordan Lasker. As a high schooler, the Ugandan-born, ethnically Indian Mamdani listed himself as both Asian and African American. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has publicly called on the school to release Mamdani's enrollment information, calling his racial self-identification deeply offensive. Aides to former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who lost the Democratic primary to Mamdani, suspect that this is just the tip of the iceberg, suggesting that Mamdani may have been involved in more fraudulent behavior. However, the real public outcry was the fact that the source of the information in this story was an internal university document that had been hacked. Sources close to the story said that the New York Times was quick to run the story because it was worried that right-wing journalist Christopher Rufo would preempt the disclosure. Rufo himself confirmed to digital news media company Semaphore that he was indeed tracking the information and he planned to publish more on his Substack. Former Times public editor Margaret Sullivan at The Guardian said that given the story was based on hacked and leaked material, there should be an extra high bar of newsworthiness to justify publication. The Mamdani piece fell far short of the newsworthiness bar. University of Minnesota media ethics professor Jane Kirtley said to Columbia Journalism Review, "It's disingenuous to tease Lasker's full biography in a game of we know something you don't know." However, a spokesperson for the New York Times denied that the report was hastily published as a result of Rufo's investigation. They emphasized that Mamdani himself had confirmed that the information was true and that the reporting process had followed normal procedures. Then, on Tuesday, President Trump threatened to use federal power to seize control of New York City if Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor. President Trump told the New York Post, "If a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same. But we have tremendous power at the White House to run places where we have to. We're going to straighten out New York. Maybe we're going to have to straighten it out from Washington." Mamdani's scandal was already explosive. Then his past remarks about arresting Netanyahu just added fuel to the fire. During President Trump's dinner with Netanyahu earlier this week, there was a moment when reporters asked Netanyahu if he was worried about the possibility of facing arrest in New York. This was because back in December, Mamdani said, as mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. "This is a city that our values are in line with international law. It's time that our actions are also." So let's check out how Netanyahu responded.
The next mayor of New York City is Zohran, Democratic Socialist, the local critic of Israel and of yourself, and has said he would arrest you if you came to New York City if he was mayor. Is that something you take seriously, or are you concerned about that? Do you have a response to that?
No, I'm not concerned about that.
I'll get him out.
Look, there's enough craziness in the world, but I guess it never ends. I mean, you have this is folly, and it's silly in many ways because it's just not serious.
And President Trump also reacted to the question.
This is a communist. He's not a socialist. He's a communist. And he said some really bad things about Jewish people, and he said some really bad things about a lot of people. And I think he's going through a little bit of a honeymoon right now, but he might make it. But, it all comes through the White House. He needs the money through the White House. He needs a lot. He's going to behave. He'll behave. He better behave. Otherwise, he's going to have big problems. But it's a philosophy that this country is not ready for, and it never will be.
And President Trump has said that his administration would considering taking over governance of Washington, D.C. and strip D.C. of its special status, making it the 51st state. And he suggested that he could take similar action in New York because of his distaste for the leading candidate for mayor there. While President Trump said his administration had a good relationship with D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser, he has less complimentary words for Mamdani. The Department of Justice announced on Tuesday that a hacker who was funded by the Chinese Communist Party's Ministry of State Security and by the Shanghai State Security Bureau was arrested in Italy last week and is facing multiple felony charges. Xuzhi Wei is a 33-year-old Chinese hacker. He was arrested on July 3rd at a Milan airport. He's accused of participating in a series of hacking operations with his accomplice Zhang Yu between 2020 and 2021 in order to steal sensitive data such as COVID-19 vaccine research and government policy-related information. These hacks were directly supervised by the Chinese State Bureau and the Shanghai Bureau, and they targeted U.S. universities, research institutes, law firms, and businesses with Exchange mail servers. One of them was a massive cyber attack that is code-named Hafnium, which affected thousands of computers worldwide and victimized more than 12,700 U.S. organizations. In February of 2020, they hacked into the network of a university that was researching the COVID-19 vaccine in South Texas. Xuzhi Wei confirmed to the Shanghai State Security Bureau on February 19th that the network was under control, and the next day he received instructions to lock down specific researchers' mailboxes and successfully steal the contents. Nicholas J. Ganjai, the Houston-based U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Texas, said at a news conference, the hacking of these American universities is not just a violation of intellectual property rights, it's an attack on American scientific innovation. During his hacking career, Xuzhi Wei worked for Shanghai Power Rock Network Technology Company, which is one of the many collaborative hacking outsourcing companies in China. The case highlights Beijing's use of underground contract hacking firms like PowerRock to operate large-scale cybersecurity attacks as a means of masking official identities. And those private hackers have the audacity to hack into U.S. computer networks and steal secrets because they think that they're in China and well outside the control of U.S. law enforcement agencies, but they forget that the U.S. has extradition agreements with most of the world. Xuzhi Wei was arrested on a U.S. arrest warrant by Italian police when he was waiting at the Milan airport last Thursday after arriving in Italy for a vacation. U.S. officials emphasized their commitment to tracking down foreign hackers regardless of how long it takes. Nicholas Ganjai, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Texas, said, "Even if it takes years, we will track hackers down and make them answer for their crimes. The United States does not forget." And as tensions between the United States and China escalate in cyberspace, more signs of deep turmoil are appearing inside the Chinese regime and around Xi Jinping. Yesterday, we covered the BRICS news and the fact that Xi Jinping and Putin did not attend the BRICS summit. This was interpreted by many as a sign of the two leaders not wanting to clash with President Trump. So the relationship between these two men and President Trump is a bit delicate at the moment. Vladimir Putin upset President Trump by refusing a ceasefire, and Xi Jinping's own position has been in jeopardy lately. So is President Trump aware of Xi Jinping's predicament? Gregory Copley, the president of the International Strategic Studies Association, confirmed President Trump's knowledge of the situation in several recent media interviews. He outlined to several media outlets what he's been hearing about the status of Xi Jinping. Many Chinese military leaders around Xi have been disappearing. And these were not the usual removals because of anti-corruption investigations. The military chiefs who have been removed in recent weeks were all loyalists to Xi. In fact, they were part of his inner circle. Their removal was not only a surprise to outsiders, but it indicated that there was a fight occurring between the various factions of the Chinese Communist Party. Another point of interest has been the way in which Xi has been traveling without much of an entourage. Indeed, his personal bodyguard detachment has been cut in half. So, did he reduce his own bodyguard contingent? I think not. And a third point is, Xi's wife has not really been seen in public for some time, and this is another sign that something is amiss behind the scenes. We've heard most of this content before. But coming from a renowned geopolitical analyst, Gregory Copley, it is naturally more convincing. He also mentioned that Xi Jinping's most likely direct successor is a technocrat named Wang Yang. He held various top positions in the CCP throughout his career before retiring. It's believed that he will come out of retirement this fall to lead a transition out of the Xi Jinping era. There's likely a deal that Xi Jinping cut with his successors. He most likely cut a deal in exchange for going willingly and so that he and his wife will be allowed to enjoy a peaceful retirement. According to Copley, what the world will witness is the possible return of a far more technocratic elite that favors scaling back direct confrontation with the West and wants to restore its diminishing economic ties with Washington and the rest of the West. That is to say, Beijing is changing Xi Jinping's past practices, so naturally the CCP would not let Xi Jinping go to the BRICS summit this week. And Copley also said that President Trump is very aware of the potential regime change in Beijing. But President Trump has taken a conservative approach, and for the time being, he is not directly pushing for Xi Jinping to be ousted or for a regime change in the CCP. Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently raised national security alarms when AI technology was used to impersonate voices and make calls to foreign officials in an attempt to trick allies and manipulate diplomatic communications. The State Department has cited unknown individuals who have attempted to contact at least 3 foreign ministers, a U.S. federal senator, and a state governor using Secretary of State Marco Rubio's identity. The fraudulent messages were sent via text message, signal, and voicemail, but the recipients were not identified. This is the first confirmed case in the United States of an AI impersonating a senior government official. The U.S. Department of State issued a notice to embassies around the world last week and launched an urgent investigation to strengthen overall defenses against the infiltration of hostile forces into the diplomatic system. The good news is that the scam did not result in a cyber attack or threat to State Department's computer systems. However, if the targets were defrauded, resulting in the compromise of information or accounts, there is a possibility that this data could be obtained or compromised by a third party. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said that the department says it's aware of the incident, it's monitoring it closely, and the department emphasizes that it will continue to strengthen security measures in order to prevent similar situations from occurring in the future. But she would not respond to further details because of security concerns and the pending investigation. The FBI said that since April, criminals posing as high-ranking U.S. officials have targeted a number of current and former senior government officials and their associates in an attempt to obtain information or funds by deception. Rubio has suffered similar fake incidents before. In the spring, an AI-created fake video claimed that Rubio was going to cut off Ukraine's Starlink internet service, but the Ukrainian government quickly clarified that this was fake. And in May, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles' cell phone was hacked, and hackers posed as her to contact senators, governors, and corporate executives. The White House and the FBI then launched an investigation. Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X, announced her sudden resignation today. She said, "After 2 incredible years, I've decided to step down as CEO of X." Yaccarino is the former head of advertising for NBC Universal, and she began her career on June 5, 2023 as the CEO of X. She wrote, "When Elon Musk and I first spoke of his vision of X, I knew it would be the opportunity of a lifetime to carry out the extraordinary mission of this company. I'm immensely grateful to him for entrusting me with the responsibility of protecting free speech, turning the company around, and transforming X into the Everything app." She did not disclose the reason for her resignation in the post. She only talked about the progress that X has made in the past 2 years. She said, "We started with the critical early work necessary to prioritize the safety of our users, especially children, and to restore advertiser confidence. This team has worked relentlessly from groundbreaking innovations like Community Notes and soon X money to bring the most iconic voices and content to the platform. Now, the best is yet to come, and X enters a new chapter with XAI. Yaccarino was appointed by Elon Musk at a time when advertisers were pulling out of X. So I wonder if her decision has something to do with Elon Musk's recent confrontation with Republican conservatives or with the Epstein explosion. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. Please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.